Hello. I wanted to ask a question because there was a discrepancy in the form I filled out. In one part of it, it says I get 5 minutes. On another part, it says I get 3. I do have 2 topics that I would like to share on, so at this time, I would like to request that I have 3 minutes to talk about both.
Certainly. We can give you 5 minutes if you'd like.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah.
All right.
Just, if I don't stop on myself, give me a look.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Amber Harper. I use she, her pronouns. I have 2 students in the GIPS district right now. I am a mother of 5. Professionally, I work for the Nebraska Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. That means working with survivors and programs across the state as they actively escape crisis situations, including sexual, domestic violence, trafficking, and stalking. Locally, I chair a coalition called the Grand Island Area Coalition on Trafficking, and I recently was accepted as a parent ambassador on the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation for the upcoming 25-26 year. The first topic that I would like to talk to you about today comes from discussion on a policy of the last meeting concerning protections within dress code, bullying, and harassment policies for racial and ethnic hair. I can understand as a white person and looking at a board that is mostly white that there would be a lack in understanding of why those things are so important to include. My husband is Black, my children are biracial, and it took a really long time. I'm still learning how to properly care for their hair. There are lots of different types of curl patterns. One of my children has 4C, which is like the hardest to condition and keep moisturized and clean and work with. And then I have another who's a little half and half. Half of her hair straight, the other half has a little bit of a curl. With that, I do all of my family's hair. I cut their hair, I braid their hair. I can also lock hair. Because that's not something that's offered in this area of the state. Even looking at cosmetology schools, it's not necessarily something that students can specialize in. There aren't necessarily barbers or other stylists that can do that hair. And then also you add in like the cost of it, right? I'm just gonna speak for my family. Black hair is really expensive to get it cut, get it washed, get it put in a protective style. And then really to maintain that well, it's about 4 to 6 weeks. So you're looking at anywhere from $60 to $200 depending on the type of cut or style you want. That's neither here nor there. In a public school setting, often my children have been asked by other students, teachers, and staff if they can touch their hair. They're often kind of like tokenized for the kind of hair that they have. Additionally, during Black History Month, like my students have been in classrooms where it was pointed out, specifically within elementary school, that if they lived when Martin Luther King Jr. lived,
come up with, I mean, the Multicultural Coalition has the orange folders where you can even think
all of that is really connected to oppression. And as keepers of our school district,
of this. So tonight,
I want to assume the best of
really just
intentions
more so that we make sure that everyone stays informed of what we did.
Students, and it's not a
Definitely,
matter
there's a
of
lot more
keeping the
information that we
policy
could share.
I see my
Lots
light
of pictures, lots of
In addition to
testimonials,
that,
if
I
you
want to
will,
say
of different things that
Senator
occurred. But I
Terrell
just want to
McKinney
make sure we
actually
can run
passed
through
LB
tonight
289.
because I think one of the things on our minds will continue to be how we fund summer programming. And we just finished the summer, but we need to start thinking now about what we want.
Policy by the
come up with, I mean, the Multicultural Coalition has the orange folders where you can even think ahead of time of who's going to take guardianship of a child if their parent is arrested and detained.
I know.
Have we had those conversations as a district?
Kind of shortening it so it wasn't so descriptive.
It should be
other
clear
folks have talked about
and
like
loud
moving
and
it to an appendix,
circulated and
but
not
this policy lists out
reactive
everything in
and
like
hard
really nice
and quite
detail.
honestly, no one has followed up with me on this.
And so
I
before
sent
you
2
make
emails
decisions this evening, I would
last
like to
May,
ask,
no one
did you
has
take the
followed
time
up.
to find out
I was
what a
told you guys were going to meet
is?
with Grand Island Police Department, that you'd be happy to share that conversation.
Can any
And
board
it
members tell
hasn't.
me what a
So-
Bantu knot is? Yeah, you can guess. Yeah, so the kind of knots, right? So it's where the hair is sectioned off, combed through, and
Thank
then
you for
twisted
listening.
into a knot that sits on top of the head. It's called a protective
you, Ms.
hairstyle
Harper.
because it keeps the hair together, keeps it conditioned and intact. Also with that, can you define everything that falls under the category of a head
Yeah.
wrap?
I don't remember. By rule, we can't answer, we can only listen.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't aware of that, sir. So a head wrap would be like a do-rag, a bonnet. I've seen in other districts and most recently in the news of schools banning bonnets because they associate them with being sloppy, pajamas, all those kinds of things. It could be hair pieces, right? So maybe a clip-in bang, maybe a toss-in ponytail. If I pull my hair back and I don't just want a little knob on top, I add some hair. So please take that into consideration. Please adopt the model policy that was put out by the State Board of Education, follow LB 289, and continue to protect our students from any and all forms of harassment, bullying, and protect them in our dress code. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harper.
I don't know what happens now.
You had a second topic you wanted to.
Oh, my second time goes? Okay. Hello, my name is Amber Harper. During the end of the last school year, you all received an email with me concerning the seatbelt checks conducted by GIPD outside of the schools. After I sent that initial email, I was able to talk to Josh Sykes, emailed me, I think maybe Amanda emailed me, and I also had a brief conversation with Summer Stevens. I also met with the Chief of Police and expressed my concerns to him, namely that enforcing seatbelts shouldn't be done through surprise checks. That's going to create fear and distrust. I know certainly for me, when I pulled up to the school, I had no idea what was going on. There was one sign, so if you didn't come in on the street where the sign was, you wouldn't know what was happening. I had to roll my windows down. The officer reached into the back of my vehicle to give one of my children a fist bump. I was in my pajamas, okay? Like, I don't feel unique in that. I met with other parents at our school. They also felt really surprised and caught off guard. I later learned that this was maybe like more of a normal practice before COVID. But I think we could have just done so much better with communication, right? Even if it's not letting people know exactly when the seatbelt check is going to be, like giving them like during this month, during this week. Also, here's some resources. CHI will do car seat checks, right? Like let's connect people in our schools to community resources and not just penalize them for not having their seatbelt on in the drop-off line. Because I'm also like, my kids don't always have their seatbelt on in the drop-off line. So in addition to that, during our school field day, there were lots of cars parked around. My children attend Newell School, so there's no parking lot. It's all street parking. And a code enforcement officer came up and started to write tickets for all the cars that were surrounding the school. Felt it was absolutely unnecessary, misuse of force, misuse of resources, and particularly, I drew you this nice little picture. This was the area of concern. So this is the east side of Newell Elementary. It has a blue curb that is marked as a loading or unloading zone. It also has one single handicapped stall that is actually like, you have a sidewalk and then it kind of slants up a little bit and then there's a fence and the stall kind of sits in between the sidewalk and the fence, if that makes sense. These two vehicles were parked on the very outer edges of this blue zone. We're not causing impairment to the handicap stall at all. Again, if you've tried to park at Newell Elementary, you know that it's super hard. But not only did this code enforcement officer write them tickets for parking in a handicap zone, or that was his intention, he also brought out his window tint and had the intention of going from car to car and checking the tint to see if it was at the legal limit. Again, school is not a place where families should be afraid to interact with law enforcement. It should be a place where, honestly, I go to the school, I ask for help, they connect me with law enforcement, right? Like, I don't understand the intention behind this, specifically Nebraska. Why it feels so important to me is the Nebraska Public Media recently put out an article that said ICE agents can make arrests at schools. Here's how Nebraska schools are reacting. Now, I do want to note, Grand Island did have a section that says they do not collect any information about immigration status. They would only do so through a subpoena. But what is your plan if they just show up? Do we have that plan? Have we had serious talks with law enforcement? I've talked with law enforcement officers. They're not recognizing the political climate right now that immigration and this presidency has caused. But I know it does. There are so many students and families at my school where English is a second language, where they're probably not all documented, where they don't have the confidence or the voice or the privilege that I have today to come up here and say, we need protected within our schools, we need plans. for when we're faced with situations of unsafety. And so again, I just ask you to use your own power and privilege to think ahead, come up with protocols if there are ICE raids in our community. Come up with, the Multicultural Coalition has the orange folders where you can even think ahead of time of who's gonna take guardianship of a child if their parent is arrested and detained. Have we had those conversations as a district? It should be clear and loud and circulated and not reactive and hard. And quite honestly, no one has followed up with me on this. I sent 2 emails last May and no one has followed up. I was told you guys were gonna meet with Grand Island Police Department, that you'd be happy to share that conversation, and it hasn't. So here I am. Thank you for listening.